Welcome, it's Gene from Mavstar Observatory. We have started 2020, guys. Happy New Year to you all, first of all, and big thanks for the support that we get from the few people. We're almost approaching 30,000 subscribers on this channel, and it is heartbreaking sometimes that we've got so many subscribers, we get so many views on both the channel and on our website. Yet there is always just a small pocket of people that are supporting what we do here at the observatory. So first of all, as always, big thanks to the patrons and the people that support us on PayPal with the one-off donations. And here we are again, beginning of a new year, and we're doing what we do best here at the observatory, and that is get the equipment out there into the field and bring that data back here, process it and put it up on the internet. A little bit later on in this video I want to show you something quite stark and shocking, and this is coming from our mainstream observatories like NASA, GMAO and GOES spacecrafts, and it's to do with CO2 and the amounts that they say are in our environment compared to our own equipment at the observatory demonstrates. It's around about 30 parts per million overkill, and there's a good reason for that. Is because they want to keep pushing the CO2 agenda. And I said that this year we will definitely be monitoring CO2, and I've got a few things I want to show you guys which I think just puts it in perspective with regards to how bad things are and how misunderstood CO2 is. We're living at a point in time where there seems to be, as was described by Freeman Dyson and other very renowned scientists, there seems to be a stigmata of new religion with regards to CO2 and this evil molecule in our atmosphere. But the truth really couldn't be far from what they're telling us, because we are absolutely in a carbon dioxide drought at the moment. Let's look at it. We're at probably around 400 parts per million for argument's sake. If we drop to 150 parts per million, the plants and the trees and the greenness of our earth will start to recede. We will potentially kill all the plants if we reduce CO2 to those levels. I don't think that mankind could contribute that much of an effort to do that, but we've got to take this into consideration, because there are people that are going after the molecule CO2 with a vengeance, and they are causing hysteria. And we really need to appreciate CO2 and not victimise it. And that is exactly what we are getting from people like Greta, Al Gore, and if you watched the Chancellor of Germany make her speech this year, you will see that she's also on the bandwagon of victimising CO2, Merkel. But really, these people are maniacs. I mean, if our Earth has got greener in the last 20 years, why would you persecute CO2 for it? CO2 is a trace molecule in our atmosphere. Most of the climate models that we've got only use CO2, and very few of the honest climate models actually put the monster of all greenhouse gases in their modelling systems. And even when they do, it's still very primitive and very inaccurate. And what I'm talking about is obviously the monster water vapour. That very monster that I'll show you later on, that even when Al Gore launched his book, he hairbrushed all the clouds off the cover of his book, because it showed the continents beneath the clouds. But if you're out in space looking down on Earth, you'll see that the Earth looks like a blue and white marble, and the white part of that marble is cloud, and that is the monster greenhouse gas that is emitted from all of the weather modelling systems. And they've been a failure. the weather modelling systems, as much money that we've spent on these weather modelling systems, they've been a complete failure. They've failed to predict weather beyond 3 or 4 days. And certainly you can't use these modelling systems to predict 10 years into the future. It's ridiculous. It doesn't matter how much money you spend on the modelling system, you just don't get the results for it. And that has been proven because, we see that the Earth still has ice caps, and we still enjoy snow, and these are things that was promised wouldn't be possible at 2020. They have almost sold CO2 as this evil molecule that was going to destroy the planet, and clearly their models have failed, their predictions have been wrong, and as a result of that, we have spent and wasted and changed industries on our planet, for no reason. There was no need to. In fact, if you probably buy an electric car, you're killing this planet, you're choking it, because you are not buying a car that burns carbon and therefore adds the carbon to the atmosphere. We can easily, as I've showed you, live in an atmosphere of 1,000 parts per million. And if we had 1,000 parts per million of carbon dioxide right now, our planet would look even greener than what it does today. There's a lot of misunderstanding with climate science, and some people get the impression if we put more CO2 into the atmosphere, eventually we're going to choke ourselves. It's not the case. We can build highly accurate equipment like the sensor that we've got on board, this oxygen sensor, that accurately shows the levels of oxygen in the atmosphere don't change, because atmospheric oxygen is, as you see, at 21%, and just because the trace molecule CO2 goes into the atmosphere, it doesn't create more it doesn't reduce the oxygen as a result of that. We have a massive reservoir of oxygen, and we have that because of the plants that have put out the oxygen as part of their process of photosynthesis. Our plants need the carbon that we've got in our atmosphere. They need a lot more than that, and that's why professional commercial growers actually boost up the levels of CO2 in the greenhouses to around about 1,000 parts per million. But I've showed you guys in my own living room, after being in the house for a good 24 hours, if I put the CO2 monitor on there, it's reading about 1,200 parts per million, and it's a healthy environment, 1,200 parts per million. It doesn't mean that the levels of oxygen have actually reduced in the room at all, or in the house. It's just that the fact that we are exhaling CO2 as part of our respiration. So my point is that we are getting it so wrong, and the religion has taken off and become accepted by a lot of people in such a short space of time, and other scientists have realised this. And like I say, if we're going to alter our industry to reduce CO2, then the only thing we'll be doing, if everyone was to agree globally in every government, which they don't clearly, the only thing we would do is harm this planet. We don't give nature its credit where it is really due. Our Earth has a way of protecting itself. It has always, and just because we've become a little bit intelligent over the last couple of 100 years with the levels of our technology, it doesn't mean that what we think is going to happen is actually going to be the case, as we have already found out with the predictions that was made 20 years ago with regards to CO2. So, there's a lot of things I could talk about with regards to the hysteria at the moment. But all I can say is if we all go to electric cars tomorrow, and if we all use nuclear, clean, green power, and all these other wind turbines and solar energy, which are so expensive, and we pay more per kilowatt for those than we do any other type of electricity, then, we're only going to damage the planet. Can you believe that? And this is why people like Al Gore should be really stripped of the Nobel Prize, because it has been proven now that everything he has said would happen hasn't. Those weather modelling systems that we relied on back then have proven to be incorrect, and we now have people sucked into this religion like Greta, who doesn't really understand the benefits of carbon, and even increasing the carbon to double the amount. And it's very difficult to get, the carbon doubled from this point on. It's not something we can do overnight. We can't put 800 parts per million in a couple of years into the atmosphere, and if we could, the only thing that would benefit from that would be all the biodiversity that depends on it. And it is a real shame, like I say, that that these people are against not just our Earth becoming greener, but they're also. I just don't understand in this day and age why somebody would be against that in the first place. Who would want to destroy a thriving, vibrant Earth that is actually getting greener because of the CO2 in the atmosphere? Who would want to do that? Only a maniac or someone completely ill-advised would be. Anyhow, I could go on. I will show you Al Gore's book later on. I'll also show you on Nullskull the levels of CO2 that are predicted to be actually where I am right now. I've zoomed in on the UK, and I'll also show you the CO2 levels outside, because whilst we've been talking, I've left the CO2 instrument outside, and it's taking samples of the levels of CO2 in our atmosphere, and you will see that they're nowhere near the levels. In fact, why don't I just grab the camera and hopefully I can show you. Right, so you can see the United Kingdom here on the actual chart just there. You can see where the little green dot is, that's where we are, Central England. And if I just show you the parts per million, you can see they're at 439 parts per million. Yeah, if we have a look at the CO2 reading that we're getting outside, I might have to zoom in on that for you guys so you can see, but we're at 401 parts per million. Can you believe it? At 10 degrees. So they've completely got it wrong. It doesn't really matter where you click on the UK with the CO2. You can see that it goes up to 435 parts per million. If I go further south in the UK, apparently we're at 453 parts per million. But this data, if you look, is coming from NASA. There we go, NASA. So they're the ones that are supplying the data with GMAO and GOES satellite, and the data's, like the weather modelling systems, completely inaccurate, because according to this we should have another 40 parts per million at least than what they're saying we've got. And you know why the reason that is, don't you guys? It's because they're lying, clearly. They are pushing CO2 and they want to claim taxes for it. They want to charge us taxes for it. And it's almost like an ingenious way of, when you're in a point in time and you're struggling to rate the public of taxes, if you can come up with an ingenious way like CO2, you can actually take that money off people. So it's like I say, it's very sad what's happening as a result. But we can easily set the record straight, and the way we do it is with equipment and taking measurements and monitoring it. We can take measurements of radiation in our atmosphere, we can take oxygen measurements, we can take with our magnetometers that we've got in the field, we can take readings of the intensity of that region, and we can model it and we can put it on our website, along with the TriMag data, which tracks the magnetic North Pole, and we can relay that that truth back to you guys. And I want to do more than what we're doing this year, than what we've done last year. Obviously want to get the muon detectors out into Brazil, South Africa, and also South Australia. And why we want those in those fields, because we want to see the difference between the weakest point of magnetism on our Earth, which is the South Atlantic anomaly, which covers Brazil, and we want to know what difference in muon collection rates are in when we compare it with Australia. And the only way we can do that is by building the equipment and getting it out there. So, I know what you're thinking, yeah, and it's coming, guys, and it has to, because this is a public funded observatory, and all the work that gets done here is funded by you guys when we build stuff. And we've got a lot of work to do this month. We're going to be building more magnetometers, more muon detectors. We're going to purchase a few other Geiger counters and maybe some CO2 equipment. We'll put a package together and get it out there. And I'm excited to see what the difference between Brazil and Australia is with regards to muon intensities in them regions. But to do all this, we need to be funded by you guys constantly, and we really could do with more people coming forward. The other day we lost 12 people on the Patreon, and we're not raising thousands and thousands of pounds on Patreon, but losing 12 people is a big deal for us. We always struggle to go over 200, and I think we're at right now 182 patrons or something like that. So again, we've lost that little bit of support that these guys provide. But if you want truth, guys, it's going to come from a small, independent and privately funded observatory like this one, and that's why it's important to fund it. And I won't go on. I think I'll round up the video here, and I'll just wish you a great and prosperous and merry new year. And our work will continue here. We'll continue to supply you with the data that we gather from now our expanding observatory. So as always, guys, bye for now.